In March of 1922, Andreas Gruber found something that should have sent him running for the nearest police station. Deep in the Bavarian woods on his isolated farmstead known as Hinterkaifeck, he found footprints. They led from the forest straight to his machine house. One way, no return prints. No one came out. Andreas searched the property, shotgun in hand. He found nothing. But that night, as the blizzard rattled the shutters, the family heard it. Footsteps, in the attic, heavy. Deliberate, right above their heads, they searched again. The attic was empty. But then a newspaper appeared on the porch, one the family didn't subscribe to. Then the house keys vanished. Andreas didn't know it yet, but he wasn't alone. For 6 months the previous maid had refused to stay, swearing the house was haunted. On March 31st, a new maid arrived. She would be dead in less than 6 hours, and she wouldn't be the only one. Today, we dive into the most terrifying unsolved case in German history. A case where the killer didn't just strike and flee, he stayed. This is the horror of Hinterkaifeck. The layout of Hinterkaifeck was a closed-court farm. The house and the barn were connected. You didn't even have to go outside to check the cattle. On the night of March 31st, something drew the family into the barn. One by one, it started with Andreas. We don't know if he heard a noise or if someone called his name, but he walked into the darkness of the stable, a mattock, a heavy pickaxe-like tool. It caught him square in the skull. Then came his wife, Kazilia. Then their daughter, Victoria. Finally, 7-year-old Kazilia. They were stacked like cordwood in the straw, but the killer wasn't done. He walked through the connecting door into the living quarters. He found the new maid, Maria, in her room. She never even woke up. Then he went to the nursery. 2-year-old Joseph was sleeping in his crib. The brutality was absolute, but the autopsy revealed something that still haunts investigators a century later. Little Kazilia, the 7-year-old, she didn't die instantly. Forensic evidence showed she survived for several hours in that barn, lying on the bodies of her parents, tearing out clumps of her own hair in a state of pure catatonic shock before she finally succumbed. If the murders were the tragedy, what happened next was the nightmare. The bodies were found on April 4th, 4 days after the murders. During those 4 days, the neighbors saw smoke rising from the chimney. They saw the cattle being let out into the yard. On Saturday, a repairman named Albert Hofner arrived to fix a feed chopping machine. He spent 5 hours on the farm. He heard a dog barking inside. He saw no one, but he felt he was being watched from the windows. He finished his work and left. When police finally entered the home, they found the ultimate horror. The killer hadn't run into the woods. He had made himself at home. The beds had been slept in recently. The pantry was half empty. The killer had been cooking meals. He ate their food. He fed their animals. He kept the fire going. He lived in a house full of corpses for nearly half a week. Why? Was he looking for something, or did he simply enjoy the domestic life he had stolen? The suspects list reads like a gothic horror novel. First, there was Lawrence Schlittenbauer, a neighbor who had a child with Victoria. He was the one who led the search party. When they found the bodies, he didn't scream. He didn't recoil. He started moving the corpses. He claimed he was looking for his son, but many believe he was looking for his own weapon. Then there's the ghost of Karl Gabriel. Victoria's husband had reportedly died in the trenches of World War I, but his body was never found. Soldiers from his unit whispered that Karl hadn't died, he had disappeared. Did he return to Hinterkaifeck to find his wife had moved on? Did he decide that if he couldn't have the farm, no one could? In 2007, the Munich Police Academy used modern criminal profiling to solve the case. They used DNA, ballistics, and psychological mapping. They reached a definitive conclusion. They found a name, but they refused to release it. Because the suspect's descendants are still alive. To name the killer would be to brand a living family with the sins of a monster from 100 years ago. The farm at Hinterkaifeck no longer exists. A year after the murders, the neighbors tore it down. They wanted the memory gone, but as they ripped up the floorboards in the attic right above the spot where the family slept, they found it. The mattock caked in dried blood. Visual, a slow fade to black. Narrator, the case remains officially unsolved, a story of footprints that only go one way. The next time you're home alone and you hear a floorboard creak above you, don't just tell yourself it's the house settling, because sometimes the house isn't just settling. Sometimes someone is just waiting for you to look up. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more deep dives into the dark side of history, hit subscribe, stay safe, and keep the lights on.